Hi, and welcome to our new episode today. If you're new here, this is your space where we talk about human behavior, emotions, and real connections simply, honestly, and without filters. No pretending, no pressure, just real conversations about what it means to be human. So today we're diving into something that I think a lot of us have either experienced it ourselves or watched someone we love go through toxic relationships and especially why people stay in them. And before we get into it, I just want to say that this is not about judgment. It's never about judgment here. It's about understanding because the truth is living a toxic relationships is way more complicated than people on the outside think. And I know this before I've been there, not exactly in the situation we're going to talk about today, but close enough to understand that sinking feeling when people ask you, why don't you just leave? Like it's that simple. Like you haven't asked yourself the same question 1,000 times at 2 a.m. So, if you're ever been in one or you're in one right now, I see you. This episode is for you. Alright, let's talk about it. So, you know what? Before we dive into why, I think we need to take a step back for a second because toxic relationship, that phrase gets thrown around a lot these days, right? And I want to make sure we're on the same page about what we actually mean here. So first, let's get clear on what we're talking about when we say toxic relationship. I'm not talking about couples who argue sometimes or have roast patches. That's normal, that's human. A toxic relationship is one where there is a constant pattern of behavior that makes you feel worse about yourself. It may be manipulation, control, emotional abuse, or even physical abuse. It's when you're walking on eggshells all the time, when you feel drained instead of energized, when you've lost touch with who you are. And here is the thing that confuses people on the outside. Toxic relationships aren't toxic 100% of the time. If there were, it will be easier to leave. But there are good moments mixed in, moments of love, of hope, of maybe things are getting better. And that part of what makes it complicated, which actually brings us to the heart of what we're here to talk about today. So, why do people stay? This is the question everyone asks, right? Friends, family, even strangers of the internet will say things like, why doesn't she just leave? Or I would never put up with that. And look, I get it. From the outside, it seems simple, but when you're on the side, it's a completely different story. Let's break it down because there are so many layers to this, and I want you to really hear me on this. Every single reason is real. First up, and this is a big one, hope. People stay because they believe things will change. They see the person their partner could be, not who they actually are right now. Maybe your partner had a rough childhood. Maybe they're stressed at work. Maybe they've promised 100 times that they do better. I remember a friend of mine, let's call her Sarah, who used to tell me about her boyfriends. She'd say things like, when he's not stressed, he's amazing. You should see him with his family. And I watched her hold on to that version of him for 3 years, even though the stressed versions was there 90% of that time. She was in love with the ghost, with who we might become, not who he actually was. And sometimes they do better for a little while, just long enough to give you hope again. This is actually a psychological pattern called intermittent reinforcement, and it's incredibly powerful. It's the same principle that makes you gambling addictive. You get just enough good moments to keep you hooked. But you know what else keeps people hooked sometimes? Something even more powerful than hope. Love. Love is still there. Love, real love. Here is something people don't always understand. You can love someone and know they're bad for you at the same time. Love doesn't just disappear because someone treats you poorly. You remember who they were in the beginning. You remember the connection you had, and the part of you keeps hoping you can get back to that. It's not weakness to love someone who hurt you, it's just human. And intertwined with that love, there is often something else lurker in the background, something that whispers in your ear at 3 a.m. Fear. Yeah, fear, and oh my goodness, fear is huge. It comes in so many different forms that it's almost overwhelming to think about. That's the fear of being alone. Maybe you've been with his person for years. Maybe you've built a life together. The idea of starting over can be terrifying. Who will you be without them? Will anyone else want you? I had a neighbor once who stayed with her husband for 7 years after she knew she would leave. She told me one day while we were having coffee, I'm 43 and I have been with him since I was 25. I don't even know who I am without him. The thrill of being single at this age, of having to date him again, of being alone on weekends, it paralyzed me. I could see the fear in her eyes, real fear. There is also fear of what they might do if you leave. In abusive relationships, especially living can be the most dangerous time. Threats, stalking, violence. There are real concerns. And if someone has been telling you for years that you're nothing without them, that fear gets even deeper. So some people fear judgment from family or community. In some cultures or religious communities, leaving a relationship can mean losing your entire support system. That not a small thing. Now, here's something interesting that happens in our brains. When we've been in a relationship for a long time, the sunk cost fallacy. We've all heard this phrase, I've already invested so much time. This is what psychologists call the sunk cost fallacy at work. You've given years of your life to this person, you've tried so hard to make it work, and walking away felt like admitting failure. It feels like all that time was wasted. But there is the truth. Staying in something that hurting you doesn't honor the time you've spent. It just adds more time to the pile. And speaking of practical barriers, we need to talk about something that a lot of people don't want to admit out loud, but it's so real. Financial dependence. Let's be real. Money matters. Like, really matters. If you're financially dependent on your partner, living becomes exponentially harder. Will you live? How will you pay bills? What about the kids if you have them? This is especially common in relationships where one partner has been controlling the finances of or has discouraged the other from working. Economic abuse is real and it's one of the biggest barriers to living. But you know, what's even more invisible than financial control? The way these relationships miss your head and your sense of self. So when someone has been tearing you down for months of or years, your self-worth takes a hit, like a serious hit. You start believing what they say about you, that you're too sensitive, that no one else would put up with you, that you're lucky they even stay. I remember well that there is a guy I know in college. We weren't super close, but would like to talk sometimes. So one day he told me about his girlfriend. He said he was socially aware and embarrassing in front of people. And you know what broke my heart? He believed her. This funny, smart, kind people started making himself smaller and smaller, stopped coming to group hangouts, stopped speaking up in class. He'd internalized her voice so deeply that it's become his own inner voice. When you don't believe you deserve better, you don't seek better, you settle for crumbs because you've forgotten what a full meal feels like. Now, this next one actually is something that really fascinated me when I first learned about it because it explains so much about why actually living feels physically impossible sometimes. This one is trauma bound. This one is important. So stay with me here. Trauma bonding happens when you go through intense experiences with someone, both good and bad. The highs are really high, the lows are really low, and your nervous system gets addicted to that cycle. Your body literally becomes attached to the pattern of tension and release. It's not just emotional, it's psychological. Breaking a trauma bound isn't just about making a logical decision, it's about rewiring your entire system. And then um, it's very hard for so many people. And there is this one reason that weighs heavier than all the others combined: children. If children are involved, everything I just see multiply yet by a thousand. People stay because they want to keep the family together. They don't want their children to grow up in a broken home. So they're afraid of custody battles or worries about how their partner might treat the kids if they're not there to protect them. These are legitimate concerns, and it's why living with children often requires careful planning and support. So, we've talked about all these reasons people stay, and honestly, we could talk for hours about each one. But there is also this pattern, this cycle that happens in a lot of toxic relationships that actually reinforce all of these reasons and make it even harder to break free. Let me explain what I mean. To explain more, there's something called the cycle of abuse, and once you understand it, you start to see it's everywhere. It's like putting on glasses that suddenly brings everything into focus. It goes like this. First, there's the tension building phase. You can feel something's coming. You're trying to keep the pace, walking on eggshells. Then comes the incidents, the fights, the blow up, the hurtful words or actions. After that uh, is the reconciliation phase, sometimes called the honeymoon phase. This is when they apologize, they promise to change, they're sweet and loving again, they buy gifts or be extra attentive. This is when you think, see, they do love me. It's going to be okay. And then there's a calm period where things seem normal until the tension starts building again. This cycle can repeat for years, and each time you go through the honeymoon phase, it reinforces your hope that things will be different this time. Your brain starts to expect that even the pain, there will be love again. So you endure the pain, uh, waiting for the love. It's exhausting and it's incredibly hard to break. But there is what I want you to know, and this is important. So take a deep breath with me here. Because if any of this resonates with you, if you're sitting there right now and feeling seen for the first time in a long time, I want to talk directly to you for a minute. First, I want you to know you're not stupid for staying, you're not weak, you're in a complex situation, and there are real reasons you're still there. But I also want you to know you deserve better, you deserve to feel safe, you deserve to be with someone who builds you up instead of tearing you down. Here are some steps can help. First one starts by acknowledging the truth. Stop making excuses for them. Stop minimizing what's happening. Call it what is it. Talk to someone you trust. Break the silence. Isolation keeps you trapped. Connections helps you heal. Make a safely plan. If you're in danger, reach out to domestic violence, alternatives, or organizations. They can help you plan an exit strategy. And also, I recommend to work on rebuilding your sense of self. Reconnect you with your friends and family. Do things that remind you who you are outside of this relationship. And finally, consider therapy. A good therapist can help you understand the patterns that let you here and give you tools to break free. And remember, living might not happen all at once. Sometimes it's process. Sometimes you leave and go back a few times before it sticks. That doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're human. So let me just bring this all together for a moment because I know we've covered a lot of ground today. You know, when I was preparing for this episode, I kept thinking about how much easier it is to judge from the outside. People are complicated, and sometimes we stay in a situation that aren't good for us because we're hoping, we're scared, or we've lost sight of our own worth. But here is what I want you to take away from this. If you're in a toxic relationship, it's not your fault that you're there, but it's your responsibility to get yourself out, and you can do it. It might be hard, it might take time, but you can do it. If you're watching someone you love go through this, be patient with them, don't judge them for saying. Just keep the door open. Keep reminding them that they're loved and valued. Sometimes that's exactly what they need to finally find the courage to leave. Alright, that's all for me today. Thank you for being here, for listening, for being part of the community where we can talk about the hard stuff without judgments. If this episode helped you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And as always, take care of yourself. You matter. I'll see you in next episode of our